My best friend thought my maid of honor speech would be about our decade of friendship. She was wrong. It was about her year-long affair with my boyfriend, and I had the text messages to prove it, ready to be displayed for her fiancé and their entire family. I stood on the stage, the microphone cool in my hand, and looked out at the sea of 150 faces, flushed with champagne and affection. They were a sea of silk and smiles, all directed at me. At the head table, my best friend Maya glowed, her hand resting proprietorially on her fiancé Ethan's arm. Her eyes, the same ones I've confided in for a decade, were shining with happy tears. Beside them sat Liam, my Liam, his handsome face a perfect portrait of supportive friendship. He caught my eye and gave me a small, encouraging nod. The gesture, which would have melted me yesterday, now sent a sliver of ice through my veins. "To know Maya," I began, my voice steady, betraying none of the seismic chaos erupting inside me, "is to be swept up in a force of nature. She is vibrant, she is passionate, she is unforgettable." The crowd murmured in agreement. Maya beamed, dabbing at her eyes with a delicate fingertip. "She taught me everything about friendship, about loyalty. She taught me what it means to love someone so much you'd do anything for them." I paused, letting the weight of the words settle in the opulent, flower-filled ballroom. I looked from Maya's radiant face to Liam's easy smile, then to Ethan's kind, trusting eyes. His devotion to her was so palpable, it was almost a physical presence at their table. But the most important thing Maya ever taught me about love, my voice dropped, laced with a new, sharp edge that cut through the celebratory hum, is that some people are utterly incapable of understanding it. And that loyalty is a word some people use, but never, ever practice. A ripple of confusion passed through the room. Maya's smile tightened. Liam shifted in his seat. Ethan's brow furrowed slightly. "For my maid of honor toast," I continued, turning to the large projection screen behind me, which everyone assumed was for a nostalgic slideshow of childhood photos. I didn't put together a collection of our memories. Instead, I thought I'd share a more recent story, a story about trust, a story about betrayal. I clicked the button on the small remote in my hand. The screen flickered to life. It wasn't a picture of two little girls with missing teeth. It was a screenshot of a text message. Liam's name was at the top, next to Maya's. The words were stark against the white background. "She has no idea. Adorably gullible, isn't she?" A collective gasp sucked the air from the room. Before anyone could fully process it, I clicked again. Another message, this time from Maya. "Ethan's sweet, but God, so boring. Sometimes I need a man, not a saint. See you Tuesday?" Click. A picture. Liam, shirtless in a hotel room I've never seen, grinning at the camera. Click. The date stamp on the photo corresponds to a work conference in another city. Click. 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 A year's worth of their secret life, their mockery, their plans, laid bare for everyone they've ever known to see. Maya was on her feet now, her face a mask of horror, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. Liam had gone a ghastly shade of white, looking as though he might be sick. But my eyes were on Ethan. He hadn't moved. He was just staring at the screen, his face utterly blank, as if the information was so monumental it had short-circuited his entire being. And then, for the grand finale, I played the video. The one they sent each other from that supposed work trip. It's only 30 seconds long. It's them, tangled in hotel sheets, laughing. Maya looked at the camera, her hair a mess, her lipstick smeared. "Love you," she mouthed, before blowing a kiss. Liam pulled her back into an embrace. The sound of their laughter, so carefree and cruel, filled the dead-silent ballroom. The ensuing chaos was instantaneous and absolute. A woman in the front, Maya's mother, lets out a strangled scream. Whispers turned to shouts. But all of that was just background noise. The only thing I saw with perfect clarity is Ethan. He rose from his chair with a slow, deliberate calm that is far more terrifying than any outburst. He didn't look at Maya. He didn't look at Liam. He looked at no one. He simply turned and walked out of the ballroom, his back ramrod straight, leaving a deafening silence in his wake. I placed the microphone carefully back on its stand, the feedback screeching for a second like a final metallic scream. I walked to the edge of the stage, down the small steps, and through the parting sea of stunned, horrified guests. I don't look at Maya, who was now sobbing hysterically, nor at Liam, who was frozen in his chair, the target of 100 pairs of accusing eyes. I just walked, my head held high, leaving the ruins of my life, and theirs, smoldering behind me. But that's not where this story begins. To understand how we got here, we have to go back. 3 months earlier, the world was still intact. My life was a comfortable, happy construct, built on 2 unshakable pillars: my 10-year friendship with Maya, and my 3-year relationship with Liam. Maya wasn't just a friend, she was a sister, a confidant, the other half of my thoughts. We'd navigated everything together, from teenage awkwardness to our first real jobs. Her family was mine, and mine was hers. Our bond was the kind of thing people wrote novels about, a fixed point in a spinning world. Then there was Liam. Meeting him felt like the final piece of the puzzle clicking into place. He was kind, funny, ambitious, and he fit seamlessly into my life with Maya. Soon it wasn't just me and Maya or me and Liam, it was us. The 3 of us were a unit. When Maya started dating Ethan a year after I met Liam, our trio effortlessly became a quartet. Ethan was everything you'd expect for Maya. He was older, established, from a family whose name was synonymous with old money and quiet philanthropy. More importantly, he was utterly, completely devoted to her. He wasn't as boisterous as the rest of us. His presence was a calmer, more grounding one, but his kindness was radiant. He adored Maya, and because she was my best friend, he extended that warmth and generosity to Liam and me, without a second thought. Weekends were spent at his family's lake house. Evenings were filled with dinner parties, and the 4 of us moved through life in a bubble of shared happiness. When Ethan proposed to Maya on a trip to Paris, I was the first person she called, screaming with joy before her plane had even touched back down. I felt a surge of pure, unadulterated happiness for her. Her dream was coming true, and I was going to be right there beside her. The role of maid of honor wasn't a duty, it was an honor I accepted with tearful gratitude. The initial months of their engagement were a whirlwind of blissful planning. I dove headfirst into my responsibilities. I spent hours on the phone with caterers, visited a dozen potential venues with Maya, and created spreadsheets for everything from guest lists to floral arrangements. Liam was my steadfast support through it all. He'd listen patiently as I debated the merits of peonies versus roses, and he'd rub my shoulders after a long day of fielding calls from vendors. "You're the best maid of honor in history," he'd say, kissing my forehead. "Maya's lucky to have you." Looking back, the irony of those words is so thick it's suffocating. We were happy. All of us. Or so I believed. The universe I inhabited was bright and orderly, its foundations built on the bedrock of love and loyalty. I had my best friend, my perfect boyfriend, and a future that seemed to stretch out before me, clear and promising. I had no idea that I was already living in the wreckage, completely oblivious to the fact that the foundations had crumbled to dust long ago. I was just happily decorating the ruins. The first tremor was almost imperceptible, a tiny crack in the facade so small I barely registered it. It was a Tuesday night, and Liam and I were curled up on the couch watching a movie. His phone, which was usually left face up on the coffee table without a thought, was clutched in his hand, face down on his chest. It buzzed. Instinctively, my eyes flicked towards it. He saw my glance, and, in a movement that was just a fraction too quick, he picked it up and angled the screen sharply away from me as he typed a reply. It was a subtle thing, almost subconscious on his part, but it was different. He'd never been secretive with his phone before. I was the one who knew his passcode, who'd answer a call for him if he was driving. "Who was that?" I asked, my tone casual. "Oh, just work stuff," he said, not looking up from the screen. He typed for another moment, a small smile playing on his lips, then locked the phone and set it down, face down again. A week later, the 4 of us were at a wine-tasting event for the wedding. Ethan was patiently listening to the sommelier while Maya, Liam, and I were goofing off in the corner. I made a joke about a terrible haircut Liam had in college, a story he'd told me on one of our first dates. Liam laughed, but Maya chimed in, Oh my God, the one with the frosted tips? I have a picture of that somewhere. He looked like a member of a boy band that never made it. I blinked. Wait, you've seen a picture of that? I thought all evidence was destroyed. Liam's smile faltered for a second. Oh, I think my mom showed it to her once, ages ago. No, you showed it to me yourself, remember? Maya said, playfully slapping his arm. That night we were all going through old photos at your parents' place. I frowned. I didn't remember that night. I was usually the one instigating trips down memory lane with old photo albums. When was that? Oh, ages ago, Maya said dismissively, waving her hand. You were probably busy with that big project at work. She turned to Liam. We should really find that photo for the engagement party slideshow. It's too good not to share. They shared a laugh, a private, knowing sound that seemed to erect a tiny, invisible wall around them, leaving me on the other side. It was a strange, unsettling feeling, like walking into a room and realizing you've missed the first part of a conversation that's about you. The cracks started to spiderweb. There was the inside joke, something about a rogue squirrel, that would send them into fits of laughter while Ethan and I just exchanged confused glances. There was the time I walked into the kitchen to find them standing a little too close, their conversation stopping abruptly the moment they saw me. There was the way Maya would sometimes make comments that felt less like jokes and more like territorial markings. Once, when I mentioned Liam's favorite dish that I was planning to make for his birthday, she'd said, "Oh, he loves that, but you have to add a little bit of smoked paprika. That's the secret. He never tells anyone." She said it with a wink, as if letting me in on a fun fact, but the underlying message was clear. I know him in ways you don't. Each instance, on its own, was explainable, deniable. But together they began to form a disturbing pattern, a low, discordant hum beneath the happy melody of our lives. I kept pushing the feeling down, telling myself I was being paranoid, that the stress of the wedding was making me insecure. I loved them. I trusted them. To believe anything else was to accept a reality too monstrous to comprehend. The world ended on a Wednesday. It was gray and drizzling outside, the kind of day that encourages quiet productivity. I was working from home, and Liam was at the office. His birthday was in a month, and I wanted to do something special, something to celebrate us after the wedding madness was over. I was going to surprise him with a trip to a quiet cabin upstate we'd talked about visiting. I opened our shared tablet, the one we used for recipes and movies, and navigated to a travel website. As the page loaded, my eye caught a small notification banner at the top of the screen. It was for the messaging app. Liam must have been using the tablet the night before and forgotten to close it. His message thread with Maya was at the top, the last message from her just an hour ago. Thinking of you, today, is going to drag. My heart did a strange, stuttering thing in my chest. It was an innocent enough message. They were best friends, after all. He was her fiancé's best man. I was her maid of honor. Of course they texted. But my finger hovered over the screen, a cold dread coiling in my stomach. The secrecy with his phone, the shared jokes, Maya's possessive comments, it all coalesced into a single, terrifying impulse. Look. For a moment I wrestled with myself. This was a violation of his privacy. If I was wrong, I would be the one who had broken trust. If I looked, I could never unlook. But the cold, sick feeling wouldn't go away. It was a primal instinct, a survival mechanism kicking in, screaming that the smoke I'd been smelling for weeks was coming from a fire burning down my own house. My hand trembled as I tapped on her name. The conversation opened. And my world, the one built on those two pillars of love and trust, imploded. It wasn't just a few flirtatious texts. It was a novel. A year-long epic of their affair, stretching back almost to the beginning of her engagement with Ethan. I scrolled up, my thumb moving mechanically as my brain struggled to process the onslaught of words. There were thousands of messages, explicit, passionate, filled with a raw intimacy that stole the breath from my lungs. They talked about everything. Their days, their frustrations, their secret meetings. They talked about me. Liam, she is so wrapped up in this wedding, it's actually perfect. She hasn't suspected a thing. Maya, she's always been so trusting. It's one of her better qualities. Adorably gullible, isn't she? Liam, don't say that. But yeah, she's planning my birthday. Wants to do something special? I feel like an ass. Maya, don't. We're not hurting anyone if they don't know. This is our thing. She and Ethan are simpler. They're happy with what they have. We just need more. They made fun of Ethan's earnestness, his stable, predictable love. They called him the golden retriever, loyal and sweet, but ultimately boring. They pitied him. And they pitied me. My trust wasn't a virtue. It was a character flaw they could exploit. Every memory I had of the past year was instantly corrupted, rewritten through the filter of this monstrous betrayal. The weekend at the lake house? They had snuck out after Ethan and I went to bed. The time Liam was working late? He was with her. Every knowing look, every shared laugh, it all clicked into place with sickening clarity. My stomach churned, and I ran to the bathroom, vomiting until there was nothing left but dry heaves. I stumbled back to the tablet, my body shaking uncontrollably. I needed to see it all. I needed to know the full extent of the rot. I scrolled and scrolled, my vision blurring through tears, until I reached a message from Liam sent 2 months prior. Liam, boarding the plane now. Can't wait to see you. This work trip is the best idea you've ever had. Attached to the message was a file, a video. My finger, moving with a will of its own, pressed play. The screen filled with the sterile, impersonal decor of a hotel room. And then, them. Liam was holding the phone, grinning, his hair damp. Maya came into frame behind him, wearing his dress shirt and nothing else. She wrapped her arms around his neck and kissed his cheek. "Is it recording?" she whispered, her voice husky. He laughed, a sound I knew so well it felt like it was physically tearing me apart. "Yeah, say hi to your future coworker." She giggled and looked directly into the camera, into my eyes. "Hi, future coworker," she purred, a sly, triumphant smile on her face. "Wish you were here." Then she laughed again, a sound full of shared secrets and stolen moments, and pulled him down onto the bed, out of frame. The video ended. I sat there on the floor, the tablet in my lap, the gray light of the afternoon filtering into the silent apartment. I didn't cry anymore. I was hollowed out, a vessel scoured clean by the sheer force of the devastation. The woman who had woken up that morning, happily planning a birthday trip for the man she loved, was gone. In her place was someone else, a stranger sitting in the rubble, her mind unnervingly calm and clear. I had the truth. The question was, what was I going to do with it? The days that followed were a masterclass in psychological torture. I was living in a nightmare from which I couldn't wake, forced to interact with the two people who had single-handedly destroyed my life as if nothing had changed. I was a ghost haunting my own existence, watching the scenes play out, mouthing the lines, but feeling nothing but a vast, echoing emptiness where my heart used to be. The ultimate test of my resolve came that Saturday. Wedding dress shopping. It was an appointment we had made weeks ago, a milestone Maya had been looking forward to with breathless excitement. To cancel would have raised suspicion, and I wasn't ready for that. So I went. I drove to the upscale boutique, plastered a smile on my face, and walked into a world of white lace and tulle. Maya was already there, bouncing on the balls of her feet. "Clara, you made it! I was so worried you'd be late. The Evelyn just came in, and I think it might be the one." She disappeared into the dressing room, and I stood there with her mother, sipping champagne that tasted like acid. I exchanged pleasantries, complimented her mother's dress, and listened as she gushed about how perfect Ethan was, how lucky Maya was, how wonderful it was that Maya had a friend as loyal and dedicated as me. Each word was a fresh turn of the knife. Then Maya emerged. The dress was a confection of silk and intricate beading, cascading to the floor in a way that made her look ethereal, almost angelic. Her mother gasped. The consultant clasped her hands together in delight. "What do you think?" Maya asked, turning to me, her eyes wide and hopeful. I looked at her, my best friend, the woman who had shared every secret with me, except the one that mattered. I saw the girl I'd built forts with, the teenager I'd cried with over stupid boys, the woman I thought I knew better than anyone. And I saw the woman from the video, the one purring into the camera, laughing at my expense. The two images warred in my mind, creating a dizzying, nauseating vertigo. "Maya," I said, my voice sounding distant to my own ears, "you look absolutely breathtaking." The lie fell from my lips with practiced ease. "Ethan is going to lose his mind." She beamed, the expression of pure joy on her face a grotesque parody of what should have been a beautiful moment. She spent the next hour trying on veils, listening to me offer opinions on sweetheart necklines and French lace, all while the text messages scrolled behind my eyes like a hellish news ticker. Adorably gullible. "We're not hurting anyone." Simpler. That night, Liam came home and wrapped his arms around me from behind as I stood staring blankly into the refrigerator. "Hey," he murmured, kissing the back of my neck. I flinched, a full-body recoil I couldn't suppress. He must have felt it, because he loosened his grip. "You okay? You seem tense." "Just a long day," I said, forcing myself to relax into his embrace. It was like leaning against a stranger, a dangerous stranger. The dress shopping was a lot. "I bet," he said sympathetically. He turned me around to face him, his expression one of concern. "You've been putting so much into this wedding. Don't forget to take care of yourself. I love you." He leaned in to kiss me, and it took every ounce of my willpower not to turn my head away. His lips on mine felt like a violation. I felt a wave of physical repulsion so strong I was afraid I would be sick again. I closed my eyes and saw the hotel room. I pictured Maya's face. I endured it, feigning a reciprocity that made my skin crawl. When he pulled away, he smiled, seemingly satisfied. He had no idea he was kissing a corpse. I was already dead inside. The only thing left was the rage, cold and patient, waiting for its moment. For a week, I was a pendulum, swinging between a cold, righteous fury and a debilitating wave of doubt. The plan had begun to form in the back of my mind, a dark and terrible seed. The engagement party. A public stage for a public betrayal. It felt proportionate, just a perfectly symmetrical act of destruction. But then I would waver. I would think of Ethan's kind face. I would think of Maya's parents, who had always treated me like a daughter. I would think of the collateral damage, the sheer cruelty of it. A private confrontation seemed more humane. I could show them the evidence, watch them squirm, and then walk away, leaving them to deal with the fallout themselves. It would still hurt, but it wouldn't be a public execution. Was I really capable of that level of viciousness? I was in my car, parked across the street from a coffee shop where I was supposed to be meeting Maya to finalize the seating chart, when my phone rang. It wasn't Maya, but another friend from our larger circle, Chloe. "Hey, I can't talk long," I said, my voice flat. No, it's fine. I just wanted to ask you something quickly," she said, her voice hushed. "I'm on the other line with Maya. She accidentally conference called me. I don't think she knows I'm on here. I feel weird listening, but she's talking about you and I thought you should know." My blood ran cold. "What is she saying?" "Hold on, I'm putting you on mute, just listen." There was a click, and then Maya's voice filled my car, clear as day. She was laughing. "So, I told her, you have to wear the navy blue dress. It brings out your eyes," and she just nodded like, "Okay, whatever you say." It's honestly like having a personal assistant I don't have to pay. Another woman, a friend of hers from college I didn't know well, laughed with her. "You're terrible." "I know," Maya said, her voice dripping with smug amusement. "But she's just so earnestly helpful, so adorably gullible. She lives to serve. She wouldn't know the truth if it bit her on the ass. Liam says the same thing. We feel bad sometimes, but honestly, she makes it too easy." "She makes it too easy." Chloe came back on the line. "Clara? Did you hear that? I'm so sorry. I'm hanging up on her right now. That's insane." "No," I said, my voice dangerously quiet. "Thank you, Chloe. You have no idea how much you just helped me." I ended the call. The pendulum stopped swinging. The debate was over. They felt no remorse. They felt no guilt. They felt contempt. They saw my love as a weakness and my trust as a punchline. A quiet confrontation was a gift they hadn't earned. My kindness was a privilege they had abused for the last time. They didn't deserve a quiet exit. They deserved to have the world see them exactly as they were, stripped of their carefully constructed facades. They thought I was gullible. They had no idea who they were dealing with. My resolve was no longer just firm, it was forged in steel. The engagement party wasn't just a stage anymore. It was a courtroom, and I was going to be the judge, jury, and executioner. The day of the party arrived cloaked in a perfect, sunny sky that felt like a personal insult. My own internal landscape was a wasteland, but the world outside insisted on being beautiful. I spent the morning in a state of eerie calm. Every action was deliberate, precise. I laid out my dress, a dark, midnight blue silk sheath. It was elegant, severe, and utterly devoid of the soft, celebratory pastels everyone else would be wearing. It was armor. I showered and did my makeup with a surgeon's focus, creating a mask of placid beauty. There were no tears, no trembling hands. The emotional storm had passed, leaving behind a profound and chilling stillness. In a small velvet pouch, I placed the USB drive. It felt impossibly heavy, a tiny vessel containing enough poison to annihilate an entire room of people. Driving to the lavish country club, I went over the plan one last time. The speech was memorized, every word, every pause, every shift in tone, rehearsed in my head until it was second nature. I felt a strange sense of detachment, as if I were directing a play in which I also happened to be the star. I arrived early, as the maid of honor should. Liam was already there, near the entrance, looking impossibly handsome in a tailored suit. He saw me and his face lit up. "Wow, Clara," he said, his eyes sweeping over me. "You look absolutely stunning." "Thank you," I said, my voice even. I looked into the eyes of the man I had loved, the man I had built a life with, and I felt nothing. Not hatred, not sadness, not even a flicker of the love that had once consumed me. There was only a cold, hollow space where all of that used to be. "Are you ready for this?" he asked, squeezing my arm. "Big night." "I'm ready," I said, meeting his gaze. "I promise you, it's going to be a night no one will ever forget." He smiled, oblivious. "That's the spirit." He leaned in and kissed my cheek, a ghost of a touch that I didn't feel at all. The calm was absolute. The storm was here. The ballroom was breathtaking, exactly as Maya had dreamed it. Towering floral arrangements, shimmering chandeliers, and the happy chatter of 150 people who believed in fairy tales. I moved through the crowd, accepting compliments on the decor, smiling, laughing, playing my part to perfection. I hugged Maya's parents. I chatted with Ethan's brother. I was the perfect maid of honor, a portrait of loyal friendship. Finally, the moment arrived. The event planner gave me a nod, and I made my way to the small stage. Liam caught my eye from the head table and gave me that same encouraging nod from what felt like a lifetime ago. Maya beamed at me, her face a perfect picture of bliss. Ethan smiled warmly, a man deeply in love, completely unaware he was minutes away from devastation. I tapped the microphone. Pop. The sound echoed slightly. I took a deep breath. "Good evening, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Clara, and I have had the distinct honor of being Maya's best friend for the last 10 years. A wave of appreciative awes rippled through the room. I smiled. A wide, genuine-looking smile I'd perfected in the mirror. 10 years is a long time. It's enough time to see each other through bad haircuts. I paused for the expected chuckle, and got it. Terrible fashion choices, and more questionable decisions in our early 20s than we'd probably care to admit. We've built forts, and we've built careers. We've shared secrets, tears, and more laughter than I could ever count. Maya, standing by you as you found the love of your life in Ethan has been one of the greatest joys of mine." I turned to Ethan. "Ethan, you are everything a woman could hope for in a partner. You are kind, generous, and your love for my best friend is a beautiful thing to witness. Welcome to the family." He nodded, his expression grateful. Then I turned back to Maya, my smile softening into something that looked like heartfelt emotion. To know Maya is to be swept up in a force of nature. She is vibrant, she is passionate, she is unforgettable. She taught me everything about friendship, about loyalty. She taught me what it means to love someone so much you'd do anything for them. I saw her eyes well up. Liam looked proud. My trap was set. My tone shifted. The smile fell from my face, replaced by a look of somber gravity. But the most important thing Maya ever taught me about love, I said, my voice dropping, is that some people are utterly incapable of understanding it. And that loyalty is a word some people use, but never, ever practice. The mood in the room flickered. Maya's smile froze, a confused, tight line. Liam's posture straightened, a flicker of alarm in his eyes. Ethan's brow furrowed, his head tilting slightly. "For my maid of honor toast," I announced, gesturing to the giant screen behind me, "I wanted to share something a little more honest than a slideshow of childhood photos. I want to share a story about the kind of passion Maya is truly capable of. A story about her, and about the other man she loves." I pressed the button. The first text message appeared on the screen, 10 feet high. "She has no idea. Adorably gullible, isn't she?" A collective, sharp intake of breath. I watched Maya's face. The color drained from it instantly. Her eyes darted from the screen to Liam, a look of pure, panicked horror dawning. Liam looked like he'd been punched in the gut, his mouth slightly agape. Click. Ethan's sweet, but God, so boring. Sometimes I need a man, not a saint. See you Tuesday? Maya's mother let out a small, strangled gasp. Whispers erupted like wildfire. I kept my eyes on the head table. I watched Maya's hand, which had been resting on Ethan's arm, twitch and fall away as if his skin had suddenly become molten lava. Click. The photo of Liam in the hotel room. Click. The date stamp. Click. 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 I let each message hang in the air for a few seconds. A slow, methodical torture. With each one, the chaos grew, the whispers becoming shocked exclamations. But Ethan remained unnervingly still. He stared at the screen, his face a pale, unreadable mask. He wasn't looking at the crumbling wreck of his fiancé next to him. He was just absorbing the information, the digital proof of the lie he'd been living. "And finally," I said into the microphone, my voice cutting through the noise, "a short film, produced by the happy couple themselves." I played the video. The sound of their laughter, so intimate and so cruel, echoed through the vast, silent ballroom. Maya's purred, "Wish you were here," landed like a physical blow. The 30-second clip felt like an eternity. When it ended, the screen went black, plunging the room into a stunned, suffocating silence. Then, the scream. It came from Maya's mother, a raw, wounded sound of disbelief and shame. That scream broke the spell. Shouts erupted. People were on their feet, pointing, staring. And then, Ethan moved. With a quiet dignity that was devastating to watch, he pushed his chair back, stood up, and placed his napkin neatly on the table. He didn't look at Maya, whose face was now buried in her hands, her body shaking with sobs. He didn't look at Liam, who was staring into space, a statue of a man. He didn't look at me. He just turned, his back straight, and walked with a steady, unhurried pace through the chaos and out of the ballroom, a king abdicating a throne of lies. I placed the microphone back on the stand. I walked down the steps and into the crowd, which parted for me as if I were carrying a plague. I could feel hundreds of eyes on me, accusing, pitying, shocked. I didn't care. I walked past Maya's weeping mother and her father's apoplectic face. I walked past the ruins of my friend group, their faces aghast. I walked out of the country club, into the cool night air, and I did not look back. It's been 3 weeks. The world did not, in fact, end. It just reconfigured itself into a new, quieter, and infinitely lonelier shape. The immediate aftermath was a digital tsunami. My phone was a constant barrage of notifications, texts, missed calls, social media tags. The reactions were violently split. I was either a vengeful hero or a psychotic monster, depending on who was typing. Friends of Maya and Liam mounted a brief but furious smear campaign, painting me as a crazy, jealous ex who couldn't handle being left. It didn't stick. The evidence had been too public, too irrefutable. My own friends rallied around me, a small but fierce support system that kept me from drowning in the silence of my new apartment. The larger friend group, the one that had included the four of us, was obliterated, the social shrapnel wounding everyone. Maya and Liam are still together, from what I hear. Pariahs, clinging to each other in the wreckage. I have them blocked on everything. Their attempts to reach me in the first few days were pathetic and predictable. A mix of rage-filled accusations and tearful, self-pitying pleas for understanding. I read none of them. There was only one communication that pierced the wall I had built around myself. A week after the party, a text came through from a number I didn't recognize. It was from Ethan. It contained only 2 words. Thank you. I stared at those 2 words for a full hour, and for the first time since I'd discovered the messages, I cried. Not for Liam, not for Maya, but for the loss of it all, and for the small, profound validation in that simple message. It didn't fix anything, but it was a single point of light in the darkness. Now the chaos has subsided into a low hum. I've started therapy. My therapist says I'm processing a dual trauma, the end of a romantic relationship and the death of a foundational friendship, all at once. We talk about grief and anger. We talk about boundaries. We talk about rebuilding. I don't regret telling the truth. They deserve to be exposed. The casual cruelty, the deep-seated contempt they held for people who loved them, it deserved the light of day. But as I sit here in the quiet, surrounded by boxes I still haven't unpacked, I find myself replaying the method, the public execution, the collateral damage to families and friends who did nothing to deserve being caught in my blast radius. Was my pain a license for such widespread destruction? Was there a less cruel way to deliver a truth that needed to be told? I felt justified then, a righteous avenger serving a just sentence. But now, in the cold light of the aftermath, the certainty has begun to fray at the edges. So now, sitting here in the quiet, I have to ask myself, and I guess, the internet. Am I the asshole?